Hi guys, T here of Bed Crime Stories. Hope you're having a lovely day. It's Thursday. We are almost at Friday. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Well, Bryan Kohberger is not having a very good summer. Today, Judge Stephen Hippler blocked Kohberger's defense team from presenting evidence to the jury at his trial in August, alleging that 4 people are alternate suspects for the crime. The judge in Idaho said that the defense team's evidence was, quote, entirely irrelevant and wild speculation. Now, this is a huge defeat for Bryan Kohberger, who's going to be on trial for the deaths of Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Kaylee Goncalves, and Madison Mogen. Judge Hippler also said that Kohberger's attorneys had not shown a scintilla of competent evidence connecting the 4 alleged alternate suspects to the crime. Hippler wrote, quote, "Here, the evidence defendant has offered purporting to establish the 4 individuals as alternate perpetrators abjectly fails to meet the Meister standard. Namely, the evidence is entirely irrelevant. Nothing links these individuals to the homicides or otherwise gives rise to reasonable inference that they committed the crime. Indeed, it would take nothing short of rank speculation by the jury to make such a finding. At best, defendants' offer of proof can give rise to only wild speculation that it is possible any one of these 4 individuals could have committed the crimes," end quote. Now, the order was, of course, redacted to conceal the identities of the people named as the 4 alternate suspects. It was said, however, that 3 of these individuals knew one or more of the victims, and the 4th one was not known to the victims, but had a passing connection to either Kernodle, Mogen, or Goncalves around 5 weeks before the crime. And all 4 of these people, I'm thinking they're all guys, cooperated with law enforcement. They all provided DNA samples, fingerprints, and they allowed searches as requested. And each of their DNA was excluded from samples taken from the crime scene and the victims. Thus, there's no evidence connecting them to the crime scene. Because 3 of the individuals are said to have been socially connected to one or more of the victims, I'm going to do a little speculation. And by the way, these 3 people also interacted with one or more of the victims at social events in the hours prior to the crime. They lived within walking distance of the crime scene and were familiar with the layout of the victim's home from prior social events. Judge Hippler also wrote, quote, "While perhaps this evidence could suggest an opportunity to commit the crime, which no doubt is an opportunity shared by dozens of others in the victims' social circles, there is no compelling evidence that any of them had motive to unalive the victims, much less physically harm them or means to do so," end quote. Of course, he didn't use the term unalive. He used the word that begins with K and rhymes with pill. And the 4th man apparently noticed one of the victims while she was shopping at a store and followed her briefly out of the exit of the store while considering approaching her to talk. The man turned away before ever speaking to her, and the incident was captured on surveillance camera footage. Now, I think that person is a guy that one of the girls maybe thought was following her. And I'm pretty sure that this happened in a store that sells cannabis. Do you remember that story where they were in a store and there was some guy maybe in the parking lot I seem to remember. And I think it was somebody that everybody thought was following Kaylee. So I think that's guy number 4. The other guys, I believe, are number 1, Jack DeCur, Kaylee's ex-boyfriend. He lived really close to Kaylee, and of course, Kaylee and Maddie both placed calls to Jack that night, multiple calls. They never got through to him. From what I understand, they never chatted. But there was a lot of speculation in the beginning that maybe Jack was somehow involved in the crime because of all those phone calls. We also know that Jack was at the corner, the corner club, I think, in Moscow, Idaho, where Kaylee and Maddie spent the evening. I think the second guy, or I guess it would be the third guy in my list now, is the guy in the video who was hanging around near the food truck when Kaylee and Maddie were buying pasta. His name is Jack Showalter, and he was early on a suspect in terms of online sleuths. Because of the way he was acting in that video, we could see him waiting, kind of hovering, and then when they ran and got in a car, they meaning Kaylee and Maddie, he took off walking and looked like he was kind of mad. And then when people found images of him in Africa hunting large prey in rather graphic photos documenting his prey, and it was pretty graphic and pretty awful, people were like, oh God, of course, it's got to be him. He knows how to use certain weapons, sharp objects. Now, another option for the fourth guy could be the next door neighbor. Remember that guy? I can't think of his name right now, but he's a chef, and he was kind of strange. He posted a video after all the speculation where he was chopping things up with a sharp object, and it was almost like he was mocking us. Another possibility could be Brent Lee Kopaka. Remember him? He was a military vet who suffered from PTSD, and he ended up dead after a confrontation with the police in Pullman, Washington, near where Bryan Kohberger was living at the time. He always seemed like somebody that Bryan's team could try to use as a scapegoat. It would be very convenient because he was no longer alive. He couldn't defend himself. But it sounds like none of these guys had their DNA inside the house. So their DNA was not among the unknown male DNA found inside the house. Thank goodness for that, or they might have been able to point the finger at them. Judge Hippler went on to say that allowing the alternate suspect theory at trial, quote, would invite the jury to blame unrepresented persons for heinous crimes when there is not a scintilla of competent evidence connecting them to the crime, and would do nothing more than waste the precious time of the jury and the court in what is already scheduled to be a 3-month trial. Now, this is just me speculating on who those 4 guys are. I could be wrong. Let me know if you have any ideas about who those individuals might be. We know now that they had nothing to do with this crime, allegedly. So I think they're safely out of the firing squad, so to speak. And Judge Hippler also shot down Kohberger's 11th hour bid to try once again to delay his trial, based on claims that a recent Dateline episode had revealed evidence leaks in the case. So Bryan is going to be going to trial in August. Jury selection will begin on August 4th. And opening statements are expected to take place on August 18th. We also know now that the DoorDash driver who delivered food to Xana minutes before the crime told police that she saw Bryan outside the house that night. She is a 44-year-old woman who is expected to testify at trial. The only problem is she might be viewed as unreliable because she apparently has some issues with alcohol and drinking and getting pulled over, that sort of thing. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next time on Bed Crime Stories.